You know, when most people think of the Civil War, they think of Gettysburg, Antietam, Chickamauga, Battle of Atlanta, Silo, big generals, big massive armies, cavalry, stuff like that. But today we're not going to talk about the big battles or the big generals, but we're going to talk about something that hits close to home. We're going to talk about here in Sevier County and the Civil War, in the hollers, on the ridges, in the backyards of families who wanted no part of the war, but had to walk a thin, fine line between the North and the South. On today's episode of Our Home Tennessee, we're going to be discussing the Civil War in Sevier County. This is our home.
Welcome y'all to the heart of the land. From the Smoky Hills to the farmlands grand, the legends whisper where the rivers wind. Our home Tennessee, a treasure you'll find. Echoes rise from the Cumberland breeze, stories carved in the roots of these trees. From Memphis lights to the Nashville sound, our heritage strong, it knows no bounds. Our home Tennessee, wild and free, a tapestry of history, fields of gold and sky so blue. Every tale it holds is tried and true. Rocky top dreams and valleys wide, folks who live with that southern pride. From the delta's hum to the mountain crest, our Tennessee is our home Tennessee.
I'm your host, Scott, for today's episode of Our Home Tennessee. You know, this was not a place of large plantations. This wasn't a place of large slave owning. A lot of the families here did not have slaves, like in Middle Tennessee or the rest of the Deep South. No, most of the people that made up Sevier County were farmers, skilled workers, mill workers, and us good mountain families trying to survive. You know, there was not a lot of slave holdings here, which caused a great debate when it come time to decide if Sevier County was for succession or against succession. Most people in Sevier County were Unionists, people who supported the Union and not the Confederacy. But you know, in border states and border counties, sometimes you can't pick neutrality. You know, in 1861, when Tennessee did end up seceding from the Union, it made every county in the state pick sides. Pretty much forced them to. I know in Sevier County alone, there was brothers versus brothers, neighbors versus neighbors. Businesses split up and destroyed on account of it. People ran out of town. Churches split for political view because of political views. Matter of fact, a few churches in Cades Cove was formed due to the Civil War. It was not an uncommon sight, just like all over the county. Some East Tennessee men did join the Confederate Army because they felt like they had to loyalty for the state. Some thought it was the right thing to do. You know, and then there was some, East Tennessee men that even slipped away in the night to go join the Union Army. You know, Sevier County favored the Union Army more than the Confederacy. even though some of our surrounding counties were more on the southern side. Sevier County was mostly a Unionist county. There are some families that just stayed hidden, hoping to avoid the war until the war came knocking anyway. You know, some people do not know that Sevier County changed hands multiple times during the Civil War. The Union would come through scavenging, and then the rebels would push them back. Rebels would set up fortifications for a little while, and then the Union would come back. You had guerrilla warfare coming through. Thomas's Legion set up over in Gatlinburg to protect the saltpeter mines up in the mountains, which caused the Battle of Gatlin Flats over in Gatlinburg. That battle was between Thomas's Legion and a small cavalry outfit. And they went back and forth, but miraculously nobody was wounded. But at the end of the day, Thomas's Legion retreated back up into the mountains and over the mountains to Cherokee and left the saltpeter mines to the Union. Saltpeter is something that was used for gunpowder back then. You've also had the Battle of the Fair Garden in Sevierville. Battle of Fair Garden was under Confederate General James Longstreet and the Army of Northern Virginia, and a fellow general from the Union Army with his cavalry that met in Sevierville near the present-day Walter State campus. Now that was an interesting battle because the Union come through trying to push the Confederate out and to try to get stuff for their horses and supplies, and were met with resistance from Confederate cavalry. Next day turned into a battle, which the battle happened this month, January. Battle the next day went on all throughout the day, started off with a foggy morning, and then at the very end, the general on the Union side ran into two infantry regiments coming over the river that were part of James Longstreet's Army of Northern Virginia, and they retreated back outside of town and went on to fight another day. So Sevier County has seen a few skirmishes here and there, as well as a lot of raids and stuff like that. The old mill in Pigeon Forge was a Union site. They had a hospital in there, as well as the top floor of the grist mill was used to make uniforms for the Northern Army. You know, just imagine, if you will, you live on one of the cabins in the foothills of the mountains. You hear gunfire echoing throughout the day. Not knowing, was it the Union coming in or was it the Confederacy coming through? Not knowing which side. For most people in the Civil War era, Sevier County was mostly tension every day. Just imagine that with a gunfire. Sometimes in the late night, you could still hear gunfire popping off in the woods. You know, it was not too long into the Civil War before guerrilla warfare came to Sevier County. Guerrilla warfare was not like the regular battles of the Civil War. It was not where you had regiments lining up shoulder to shoulder, marching across an open field, bayonet charges. Guerrilla warfare was attacks on roads, attacks on supply wagons, hiding in the night, retaliation killings. In Cade's Cove, there is a story of a rebel that was, or a Union that was killed by rebels in the middle of the night. It became widely known in Sevier County. If somebody burned your barn, you remembered it. If somebody stole your livestock, you remembered it. Guerrilla warfare was not for the faint of heart. Just imagine it. You've got a farm, cattle, you're doing good. And then all of a sudden, here comes the Yankee cavalry in. They commandeer food and your house and everything. But then sometimes when they leave, they would burn your barn down or your home down. Same thing sometimes with the Confederacy. They'd come in and you're harboring Union, or they know you're a Unionist. They will burn your house down. Guerrilla warfare was not for the faint of heart. Colonel Thomas of Thomas Legions was widely known for his guerrilla warfare in the Civil War and in the Smoky Mountains. Most of his legion was made up of a band of Cherokee Indians. Granted, they did not really ever venture too far in Sevier County. They stayed mostly in White Oak Flats or present-day Gatlinburg, of where the Civil War became personal. The mountains remembered the grudges. Up next, we're going to talk about the home front in Sevier County during the Civil War. You know, while most of the men and sons, fathers, and brothers were off fighting the Civil War, it left the women and children to manage the home front in Sevier County. They ran the farms, businesses, schools, and households. Some of them went to be nurses in field hospitals. Some turned their own homes into hospitals. It was a heavy burden during the war. Just imagine this. You're a mother and a child with your 4 or 5 children, hunkered down in your farmhouse. You hear infantry coming or cavalry coming, not knowing, are they going to take your last sack of corn or your wheat or tobacco that you need to pay rent or corn to feed your horses or food? It was tough all around in the life of Sevier County during the Civil War. Some women and children even took to secretly helping Confederate soldiers escape or wounded, or help Union soldiers escape or help with the wounded secretly, because you did not know if the enemy was ever going to approach you and search your farm. This was not a war for the faint of heart. You know, when the Civil War ended in 1865, Sevier County did not just bounce back like that. The bitterness was still there. War veterans came home, the houses gone, barns burned, loved ones missing or dead. Union veterans lived close to Confederate veterans. Churches had to rebuild their congregations. You know, rebuilding and reconstruction was about the rebuilding. But the trust was the first thing to try to rebuild. And in some instances, even to present day, that has never fully happened. The Civil War may not have impacted Sevier County as much as it did Gettysburg, Antietam, Atlanta, Kennesaw, Mobile, Petersburg, or Richmond. But the Civil War did leave scars in Sevier County and East Tennessee. So why does the Civil War matter in Sevier County? Because the roads we drive on, the land that we walk on, and houses that we live in, the names on the tombstones of the Confederate dead and Union dead matters. It helps us understand why East Tennessee is shaped the way it is in present day. What the loyalty was and what loyalty means back then. You know, the Civil War didn't just pass through Sevier County. It lived here, in the mountains, in the rivers and lands. It lived here. This county has seen division before and survived. It lived in the families that had to choose Union or South, or were forced to by family ties or by political ties. That's our story. This is our Tennessee. and our home. If you like today's video, be sure to tune in next week while Our Home Tennessee explores Sevierville.